I know you're raised in Reading. Were you born in Reading?
No, so I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And thing is that at that point, living in Brooklyn, we were living in the projects, and at that time, my mother was a single mom of 5 of us. And Reading holds a special place in my heart, not only because it's my hometown, but also, so my father wanted to reconcile the family, wanted to bring us back together, and so my mom asked him that if he wanted to bring the family together, we needed to buy a home. We were tired of living in the projects in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And so my father bought his first home as an immigrant here in the city of Reading, and that was his way of buying his piece and earning his piece of the American dream. And it was also a way to reunite my family. So, so Reading means so much more to me because it's that place where I grew up, but it's also a place where my family was able to be reunited as well.
What did your mom and dad do for like work? And are they from? Sorry. Where are they from? The Dominican Republic? Am I wrong on that?
My father immigrated from the Dominican Republic, and my mother is from Puerto Rico. And my father actually came to this country through the border of Mexico back in the 80s, right? He was one of the ones that were able to come through Tijuana, Mexico, and he went up to California and somehow, some way ended up in New York City and ended up in Reading. But my father was, is a quintessential immigrant, right? Came to this country, leaving his homeland for the land of opportunity. And now, a generation later, he sees his immigrant son, take the oath of office and be a legislature in the state house. So my father currently is a factory worker. He's a candy technician at R.M. Palmer's here in the city of Reading. He's been there for 25 years. And so been an upstanding citizen since he's gotten to this country. My mother, Puerto Rican, obviously a lot of folks, and we got to remind folks that Puerto Ricans are American citizens, of course. So my mother's journey wasn't necessarily as perilous, right? She was able to come to this country from Puerto Rico, settle down in Brooklyn, make a little bit of life for herself, thanks to my grandma being a garment worker in the union in New York. So she was able to give her a middle-class living. And my mother currently is a sales processor at a bank in Florida right now. So she decided to leave cold Pennsylvania and retire in Florida, quote unquote, retire in Florida in the nice sunny weather.
Nice. Well, and I mean, I will say in every bio that I've read of you, whether it be your campaign or even the new one that's on the House website, you talk a lot about the impact of seeing your mom as a single mom raise you. And I just want to sort of get you to delve in a little bit more about sort of how she was kind of the catalyst for you in public service to get you involved.
Yeah, she was Superwoman, right? I didn't understand then, why was it that, we were struggling so much? Why was it that we were struggling to keep the lights on some days, or the heat on during the winter, or food on the table? And it wasn't until much later on, right, when I started delving into this space, where I understood that my mother was caught up in a system that kept people like her, women like her specifically, under a cycle of poverty. And at the time where we were growing up in the projects in Brooklyn, I think the minimum wage was $5.25 an hour at that time. And excuse my French, but how the hell she made that work, I still don't know to this day. And her being able to even sometimes bring us Christmas presents, right? Is amazing to me. And so I look at my mother's story, I look at our story, and then I juxtapose that and looking at the city of Reading, one of the most impoverished cities in the entire country, a city that is majority Latino. And I see my mother everywhere. I see my mother in the single mom who is just trying to make ends meet. And that's what catapulted me into this life, right? Into this life of public service. Was I didn't necessarily see people who looked like me, who talked like me, who come from similar backgrounds that I did, like my family did, talking about the issues that were important to us, right? Like how, I always say, Nigel, that no matter what I do as a state legislator in Harrisburg, the truth is that nobody cares about what I do in Harrisburg if my residents in my district aren't having their own basic needs met. And so it's hard to get people to understand the nonsense that's going on in Harrisburg when they're working at a job that pays them less than minimum wage. They're driving their cars on streets that are filled with potholes. They're sending their kids to school with an inequitable and underfunded education. And so, like, I hold those values. I have those lived experiences with me, and I plan on bringing those lived experiences with me to Harrisburg when I'm making those votes and making those decisions. And lastly, I'll say that I uniquely understand that the decisions I make as a state representative are going to have not only an impact here in the city of Reading, but also across the Commonwealth. So when I'm up there in Harrisburg, I'm thinking about folks in Philadelphia. I'm thinking about folks in Lancaster, in Bethlehem, in York, in Erie, in Pittsburgh, right? Predominantly cities of color. And I understand that I have an obligation not only to speak for the residents of my district, but also for the millions of other people of color across the Commonwealth as well. And again, I don't take that responsibility lightly, but I definitely understand the role that I'm in.